Hello everybody. It's a great pleasure to welcome our graduating students in our graduate program in Interpreting and Translation Studies. We have 6 students graduating this year in 2 different tracks. One track is Interpreting and Translation Studies and the other one is Intercultural Services in Healthcare. And it's a great joy, it's a great pleasure, great accomplishment, great event, and I'm Ola Furmanek. I'm the director of the program, and Dr. Sally Barber, the co-director, will be here in a moment. We also have here our faculty who directed the projects or served as second readers. We also have people who have supported us throughout the program, throughout the year, from the library and our technical support, and Patrick Pardy, the coordinator of the program as well. So we are going to have the presentations grouped by themes, and we are going to have 2 sessions. The first session is more literature-oriented. It's about culture, language, and ideologies. And the second session is about interpreting and interdisciplinarity at work. That's how we group the presentations. And once again, it's a great pleasure. And I hope that you are not too nervous. I hope that you are ready and focused. And we are going to have a break in between 2 sessions for a tea. And if everything goes well, we are going to have a well-deserved reception after both sessions. So that's the plan, and Professor Burgos will finish the preparations.
Hopefully.
So maybe we don't need to do it now. Maybe let's just go as it is. I think it's fine for now.
Okay.
Okay? So... So our first presenter is Amanda Tingley, and she's going to talk about children literature and the challenges that it presents in translation from Spanish into English.
Thank you. So, like Dr. Furmanek said, Spanish to English translation of children's literature, language ideologies, and personification in Ricardo Alcantara's books. And in case you've never heard of him, because I hadn't beforehand, this is him. He was born in Uruguay in 1946. He decided to study psychology in Brazil because his university in Uruguay closed. And then he decided he didn't really want to do that anymore. So he went to Barcelona in 1975 to become a writer. So his books have been translated into multiple languages. There's Japanese, Catalan, Spanish, everything in between. And I'll show you some examples of his works in the next slide. He's been given multiple awards. The Premio Serra d'Or in 1979 is the most prestigious one. It was the first time that it had been given to an author who did not write a book in Catalan. So that was kind of a big deal for him. And here are some of his books. As you can see, some of them are in Catalan. This El Tento over here is the only series. There's 4 of them, I believe, that have been translated into English in the UK. So the point of my project, going into English, give him a little variety, show what his books would look like in English. And these are the 2 books that I translated, Tomás y el lápiz mágico and Tomás y la goma mágica. Every time I get those genders mixed up, which we'll actually talk about later about gender. So I'm going to give you a little synopsis of the 2 books just so you're all on the same page when I start talking about them. Thomas and the Magic Eraser. This is Thomas. He has friends that annoy him, basically. He's got a train, a ball, and a little rag doll. And the rag doll says mama only, that's it, like those little rag dolls that you have as a child. The ball, all it does is bounce, and then the train, all it does is go around in circles. So he gets really annoyed, he gets this line in between his eyebrows, gets really frustrated with his friends because that's all they do. So he finds this magic eraser over here, that little thing with the black lines around it. And this magic voice tells him that he can erase one thing that annoys him. So he thinks about it, he thinks about it, he thinks about it. He doesn't know which one annoys him the most. But in the end, he decides to erase his annoyance with his friends from himself. So instead of getting rid of a bad quality of his friends, he gets rid of something about himself that he doesn't like, which goes back to the moral of children's stories and all of that in English as well. And then Thomas and the Magic Pencil, if you can't tell, the 3rd book in this series is called Thomas and the Magic Scissors. So, Thomas and the Magic Pencil, he lives in a shoebox and doesn't have any friends, doesn't do anything really, he's afraid to leave his shoebox. And then he finds this magic pencil and draws a door to escape from his box. And he goes and draws himself this little butterfly and cloud and landscapes and all of these friends. And at the end, he finally figures out, hey, you know, it's not so bad out here. I'm not afraid anymore. And at the very end, another little boy finds it and starts to imagine what he could draw with this magic pencil. So just so you get a little idea for the format, if you don't know Spanish, I'm sorry, but this is the format of the magic pencil. That's his box, and he draws all of his friends. As you can see, it's pretty simple sentences in Spanish. Even if you don't know Spanish, you know there's 5 or 6 words a sentence. We'll talk about all of that stuff too, in terms of all of his things that he uses in his books. So that's the magic pencil. And then this is part of the magic eraser. He does have 2 different artists, that's why they look different. But his ragdoll, his ball, and his train friend that he gets annoyed with, as you can see, same type of format, short sentences, very common sentences. If you don't know a lot of Spanish, you could probably start reading these books. Okay, so for my analysis of these 2 books, I used Rice's 3 steps of textual analysis, and I broke them down for you. First, she starts with the text type, and expressive means it's for entertainment, it's fun to read. And then I also added in the operative, which means that it does something. It performs an action. And why did I pick that? It's a subtype of these books, because with children's books, you usually have a moral or some sort of lesson that they get taught, like in the Magic Pencil, you know, don't be afraid of the unknown, try new things, get out of your comfort zone, your comfort box, like Thomas was in. And so that's why I added in the operative, because it teaches children something about a moral lesson or the values that society has. And then she goes on to describe the text variety, which obviously is children's literature. And then the style analysis is characteristics of his children's literature genre. So basically short sentences, they're very simple, easy to follow and understand. Basic vocab, relatable characters and situations is important in children's books, because when they're reading them, you want them to enjoy it and get that lesson out of it. If you pick something that they're not going to relate to, they're not going to want to read it again, they're not going to get the lesson, on and on and on, you get the idea. So, some of the challenges that came up when I did this translation, the first kind of minor one was the proper name translation for Tomás. And localization is what I used, and that means that you are domesticating the term to your target culture, which for me was American kids. So instead of leaving Tomás, T-O-M-A accent S, like the Spanish, I changed it to Thomas, because we have that equivalent in English, and it's not foreignized for your American culture. And then we also have personification. All of his characters were objects except for Tomás. And I'm going to switch back and forth calling him Tomás and Thomas, because I've been reading these books for about 3 months now. But personification, all of his, they were objects, and they did person-like things, and they used verbs that you really only use for human-like characteristics. So it was hard in the Spanish to keep it in English, to make sure that I was keeping that personification in the characters and that intended effect that he wanted for those characters as well. And then gender was one of the bigger ones that I had an issue with, and that one we'll go into a little bit later as well. But verb tenses and aspect I'll also mention. I thought it was the most interesting one. We'll cover that in the next slide as well. Punctuation, if you didn't notice before, they used a lot of em dashes, and there weren't very many quotation marks when the characters were speaking. And in English children's literature, that's not really how you separate those types of sentences. So they used a lot of ellipses, the 3 dots, and in English it's just kind of extra information. And then the illustrations, we'll talk about with gender and language ideologies as well. But if you were to change anything about these stories, the illustrations would be affected with the illustrations as well. Because if you change Tomás to a girl, you obviously can't use these illustrations that they created as well. And then the intended effect, I think, is a problem and a challenge for all translators. You want to keep that initial effect that the original source author wanted to portray to his audience in a different audience, so it's kind of a challenge. So this one was the most interesting for me. I know this is probably not new information for the majority of you, but for the people who don't know a lot about Spanish, the verb tense and aspect, what I'm talking about is English does not signal aspectual choice in the same way that Spanish does. So you've got your past tense for both, and then Spanish has 2 aspects of that tense. English, you kind of just use the same thing. And this came from our Whitley book, which we went over in Dr. Gonzalez's class. The example that he used was rained. In English, you can see all of them are rained, 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 rained. And then in Spanish, llovía and llovió are the preterite and the imperfect. So when you would say Thomas lived in a box, they would use vivía, which is the imperfect, which kind of a less common way to say it is he was living in a box. So it was kind of a challenge for me and interesting for me to see that grammar switch from Spanish to English as well. And then the language ideologies is the main problem, challenge, I don't call it a problem because it was still solved, I think, in these books and with children's literature in general. Specifically with gender identity and pronoun choice. So each character carries a message. So do I leave Tomás as a boy? Do I leave la pelota, which is ball and it's feminine? Do I use all of those pronouns as she, or do I want to change it for the source culture? I could make a statement from it. I could change all of the characters to females and say, we need more stronger females in children's literature to teach these children. Does it really matter? I think it does, personally, because, like I said, children get something out of these books. And if you only show them strong male characters, and if the rag doll's a girl and all she does is cry, children are going to start picking up on that if it's in all of these books that they're reading. So you can change these aspects to make a statement or to try and sway your target culture. And then this was a very interesting quote from a study that I read. Stories told or written for children are often indicators of the dominant values within a society. Various times and cultures reveal various attitudes, not only towards children, but also towards life and society. So if you think about that, these books and the books that we're translating from different cultures can portray our dominant beliefs. Do we value submissive women or women who are emotional? Do we value strong male characters? All of these things can be portrayed, especially with children's literature where their readers are more susceptible to being swayed in one direction or the other. And then this is just a general overview of what else I covered in my analysis. These are other language ideologies that could be implemented in translation. So like I said, feminism. If I wanted to make a statement and say, I'm feminist, I'm making all these characters women, they're all going to be strong, or I'm going to make the rag doll a boy because he cries. I'm going to kind of sway those dominant societal values. And also kind of a new one, LGBTQ, not new, but it's getting more attention now with pronouns in particular, because we in English have he and she, we don't have a gender-neutral pronoun. But some people are trying to create new ones like ze or use they for singular, and with Spanish it's different because everything has a gender. So every noun, la pelota, el tren, they all have genders that I could subvert in the English translation to make a statement for or against LGBTQ values as well. And then the post-colonialism with Spain and America, it doesn't really have too much of an effect, but if you think about the dominant cultures that are doing the translating, they can also make a statement about who they're translating for, the values that they are portraying to the submissive culture or the colonized culture as well. And then just some general conclusions. Throughout this process, I realized that a new text is created through translation. So not only are you just translating the words, but you're also creating a new version of this text for your target culture. And all aspects of language ideologies, all that we talked about, intended effect, gender, personification, all of the LGBTQ, all of that has to be considered when you are a translator and when you're translating any type of work. So that leads to the hyper-awareness of two different cultures and languages, which is one of those really big deals for a translator, which I really think I've started paying attention to more with this project, and especially with children's literature. And that's it. This is just a fun little Wordle. You can make it online, and that's all the words from my translation project, and Thomas and translation were the most used, so that says anything. So you don't have any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
I do. It reminds me to be more aware of the translator's power.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a quick comment. Like they can, choose.
Mm-hmm. Everything's a choice.
Exactly. So that's very interesting. Thanks.
So what did you decide to do with the genders of the characters?
I decided to keep them based on what the source author wrote. He did have a background in psychology, so it could have been he was doing it on purpose, but I didn't see it as my role as a translator to change it. I wasn't working for any sort of ideology group or anything like that, so I kept La Pelota, all of them were she, all the balls were she, and all of that, which I found odd because I think, at least for me, I don't know if it's an American culture thing, that ball is masculine to me, you know, like, for some reason, maybe boys play sports, I don't know, but, but I did keep all of them the way that they were in the Spanish original.
Okay, great, thank you very much. And Barb?
I didn't hear the first